Magandang hapon, adventure fans. Sean here with another awesome video. Although sadly, we're not in the Philippines right now. So we have been back home here in Texas in the United States for, quite a few months now. And, we're back into our normal everyday life. And of course, we're just kind of thinking about the Philippines and our trip all the time. And today, while we were outside doing some chores, we were pruning some trees and picking some pears out of our pear tree. And, I just got to thinking about one of the times that we had when we were there. And I wanted to talk about it with you guys, and I'm hoping that it's not going to be too gruesome that YouTube actually takes it down. So, let's go back to our first week in Bohol. Now, when we got there, we didn't know what to expect. Neither of us has ever been there before. We don't know anyone there, so we're just kind of figuring it out as we go. So, talking with the Airbnb caretaker, we asked him if he knew of anywhere that could rent us a motorbike, because what we wanted to do was all over the island, and it was at least 2 hours away. So, if you're thinking about, okay, well, maybe you could just get a tricycle or a taxi or something like that. But again, we're talking like 2 hours of a drive, and then you have to pay for it all the way out there, all the way back, and then every single time that you want to go somewhere. So what we did is we rented a motorbike from the neighbor. We went to our Airbnb caretaker and asked him if he knew of anywhere that we could rent a motorbike. And he went off on his bicycle to the neighbor's house, brought the neighbor back. He let us rent his motorbike for 400 pesos a day, which is about $7 and some change. So overall, that's not a bad price, especially since we only needed a motorbike for a couple days. And then on top of that, if you were going to rent something like that here in America, it would be much more expensive. So $7 a day, we only needed it for about 2 days, or so we thought. That's not too bad, 14 and a half bucks, somewhere in there, not bad, especially when considering, again, if you wanted to take a tricycle or something, it was going to take, at least 150 pesos or more per side of the trip. So I think we did ourselves a solid by doing that. However, in that time, I kind of messed up. All right, so here's what happened. We were supposed to leave Bohol. We were supposed to go on a ferry that was going to take us straight across over to Oslo. All right, we were going to do all sorts of stuff over on the Cebu Island. And a typhoon was supposed to be coming through. So naturally, the Philippines Coast Guard shut everything down, right? No ferry, we couldn't get across. What are you going to do? So G was thinking, all right, let's go down to the port and let's figure out what's going on. And let's see if maybe there's another ferry that we can take, or at least get ourselves set up for the next day, right? So we go down to the port. We find a whole bunch of other foreigners and other Filipinos who are trying to get into this ferry company. And of course, there's a huge long line and nobody's opening the door. I don't think that they were there at all, or at least they were just keeping the door locked and not letting anybody in, because naturally everything was closed down anyway. So what are they going to do, right? So we decide, okay, well, we're going to go stand in line with everybody else and see what we can do, because at that time we didn't know that they weren't letting anybody in, and we were just kind of following what everybody else was doing, because, what else are you supposed to do? And so naturally, just like so many other times in our trip, if you look at the Cebu video, or the road to Moalboal, we go out to find where the bus station is, and immediately this random taxi driver comes up and starts talking to us. But he's not talking to me, he's talking to G, because naturally she's Filipino, she speaks Tagalog, she speaks Bisaya, and he doesn't say a word to me, he doesn't acknowledge me at all, right? So same kind of situation here in Bohol, where this random guy just comes up and starts talking to us, and I'm like, okay, well, I have no idea what's going on. I don't speak Tagalog, I don't speak Bisaya, and so all of a sudden we start walking. And I'm like, okay, gee, what's going on? Where are we going? What's happening? And so she takes us with him over across the street, and he gets us talking to these group of guys. And apparently it's like a boat captain and some other guys, I think. And these guys are trying to get us to pay them 3,000 pesos each, which is about $54 to $55 US. each for each of us, you know. So we're looking at over $100 for him to get us on this boat. And as we're sitting there trying to talk to him, you know, I'm trying to listen and I'm trying to get G to kind of give me some details of what's happening. Apparently they had some kind of a banca, or that small tourist boat that can hold like maybe, you know, 15, 20 people. And they're trying to get people on there so that they can take them across, right? So naturally, our first thought is, okay, the Philippines Coast Guard shut everything down. How are you guys getting across? And so the guy looked at us and he said, oh, no, no, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? This doesn't sound right, but, you know, I'm not from here. This definitely isn't right. And we're kind of at a standstill because we don't know what else to do, right? We're stuck in Bohol. We're not supposed to be there. We technically didn't have a place to stay that night. And so we're talking to these guys, and the guy who brought us over happened to be a tricycle driver. And naturally, he wanted to take us back to our Airbnb and then bring us back to the port. And he wanted 600 pesos for that. Well, mind you, at this time, it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. These guys were saying, okay, we have to leave by 3 p.m. Okay, well, the Airbnb is 30 minutes away. So that means that's at least an hour getting there and back. We haven't packed anything because we didn't think we were leaving anyway. So we're doing the math and we're thinking about this. I'm like, okay, everything is just really not adding up. Okay, the money, the fact that everything is shut down and somehow they're going to get us through. And then this guy wants 600 pesos to take us back. And then we find out that where they're taking this boat out is from the other port, which is 2.5 hours north, or about 2 hours north, roughly. And so we're thinking, okay, so we're not going to be able to make it because if we get to the Airbnb, we pack our stuff, we get back, let's just say that's going to take an hour and a half, right? So then the guy's going to bring us back to the port. We pay him 600 pesos, and then we ask him, how are we supposed to get to the other port? And this guy flat out says, well, somebody will figure it out. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't sit well with me either. Who's going to take us to the port? Because this guy was not interested. That was too long of a drive for him and his tricycle, I guess. And so we're, again, doing the math, and I'm like, okay, well, by the time we get our stuff and we come back, and then we somehow get in a taxi or something to take us over to the other port, it's going to be like 3:30 to 4 o'clock. There's no way we're going to miss it. And so we talked to the guys. We're like, okay, what do we do here? And the guy said, well, we're not waiting. We cannot wait. We have to go at 3 p.m. and that's just the way it is. I'm like, okay, well, you know, that's really not going to work. But again, we're kind of stressing out because we don't have anywhere to stay. We don't know what to do. And so we're like, okay, well, we need money. We need to try and hurry. We don't have cash. So we had the tricycle driver take us over to the nearest BDO ATM, right? So we're sitting there, and of course, we're waiting in line because the Philippines is a majority cash society, right? So most people need cash. And so there's a whole bunch of people in line at the ATM. And so we're standing there waiting. And of course, the tricycle driver is sitting there waiting for us, and he comes over and he's talking to us about, well, he's talking to G because, again, he's not speaking English. So he's talking to G about what's going on, and she's responding, and then the guy goes back to his tricycle where it's parked, and then the lady in front of us, she turns around and she goes, I wouldn't do it. All of this sounds really fishy. If I was you guys, I would not do this. And I'm already in my head thinking, okay, well, this is not a good idea, you know, all around. And so we stop, and I look at G, and I'm like, look, let's get some cash because we don't have any cash, but we're not doing this. Right? This is a bad idea. And she looked at me and she goes, yeah, I agree. This is probably not the best thing that we can do. And we can figure something out for tomorrow. So naturally, go to the the tricycle driver and let him know, hey, you know, we're not going to do this. The guy just wanted to make some money. You know, he was going to follow us out to the Airbnb, and then he was going to drive us back and all that. But like, he had no other plans of like what to do with us after that. So he was going to make his 600 pesos, and then that was it. And then we're kind of left high and dry after we just packed up everything, right? So we told him, no, we're not going to do it. We'll take your phone number and we'll give you a call tomorrow because we're going to need a ride, you know, back to the port and all that stuff. And, you know, of course, naturally, we weren't really going to call him again. We just wanted to be nice about it. I know it sounds bad to say, but I mean, it's legitimate. The guy was trying to work us over, let's be honest. So we got our cash, and then G was telling me, hey, I haven't had Mang Inasal in a long, long time. Let's go eat there. If you don't know what Mang Inasal is, it's a chicken chain where they make a specific type of chicken, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I like chicken. Let's go check it out. So we find where one is close by. We take our scooter and we drive over there. Now, mind you, again, there was supposed to be a typhoon coming through. So naturally, it's raining. It's not raining overly hard, but it's been raining all day. It's been raining for a couple days. So by now, the ground is all wet. And when we get to the restaurant, we pull up, and the Philippines is notorious for always having somebody at the front door, whether it's a security guard or somebody working there. And a lot of times they'll be there and they'll open the door for you. And there was a lady standing there, and we said, hey, where can we park? Because there's nothing here. And so she told us around the side, there's another entrance to the restaurant, and there's more parking. I'm like, okay, cool. So we back up the scooter, we turn around, we go to the other side of the building, and naturally, I'm not even joking. The parking spot was like this. That is not a joke. It was very steep, and on the left they had, a customer had parked there with a truck, up and down vertical, and then there was another motorbike that was parked, horizontal. And so I'm thinking in my head, okay, well, it's wet. This is probably not a good idea, but we got to park somewhere. And so I'm just going to go up and I'm going to park sideways just like the other person did, right? So of course G is like, okay, well, let me off the back first and then you can go. Okay. So she gets off. Now, this scooter was not the best, right? It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the best. And the throttle or the accelerator on it, in the handle, it was like either all power or none. There was not a whole lot of in between. And so, again, being wet and that it's a rear-wheel drive bike, I hit the throttle to go, and the whole back end just kicked out from underneath me, right? The whole bike just goes flat on its side, and I go with it. And while that happens, my right leg goes flying up in the air, and then it comes down and it lands on the exhaust pipe. And it burned so bad. I mean, initially it wasn't terrible. It was just kind of stinging. I was like, oh, wow, what happened there? So I pick up the bike, and I'm really frustrated at this point because now my leg is burned. I'm hurting. It's raining. We can't even go along with our trip the way that we want to. So I'm like, okay, I got to do something. So I back the bike out, and I take it down the street, and I just find some place and I park it, right? Okay, now we're done. Well, I end up going inside the restaurant with G, and we sit down, and I'm looking at my leg, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm bleeding here a little bit. My skin is all burned. This is not a fun time. And we just started our trip. Again, we're in the first week of the whole 30-day trip, right? So I go in the bathroom, I try cleaning it up, and naturally, Philippines, there aren't any paper towels. So naturally, I'm kind of dabbing my leg with my hand in some water, and I don't have anything to wipe it up. And so I'm just kind of figuring out what to do at this point. I'm like, okay, well, there's nothing really else I can do. We don't have any Band-Aids or medical supplies, and we just need to eat. So we go in, and the place where you sit down is upstairs. So we go upstairs, we're sitting at the table, and I'm like, man, my leg really stings. And thankfully they had napkins there, and so I kind of used a couple napkins to kind of put pressure on the wound a little bit and clean it up. Of course, there's some skin falling off and everything, and it's burned, and it's hurting, right? It's hurting. So we eat our food, and then I'm thinking, okay, well, I got to get this taken care of immediately. And one thing that really frustrates me, and I think we're going to do a video in the future about some things that are frustrating in the Philippines, is that their grocery stores do not sell medical supplies. They might have some vitamins, they might have a few like small bandages or something like that, but like it is nothing like America. Let me tell you that right now. Nothing like America. And again, I'm going to do another video on what our grocery stores look like here in comparison, but here you can go down an aisle, like an entire, multiple sections, and you can get regular bandages, you can get, small Band-Aids, you can get waterproof bandages, you can get peroxide and alcohol and, all kinds of ointments and everything, whatever you need, right? They don't have that. You have to go to a pharmacy every single time you want something. Okay, so we had to find a pharmacy, right? So we found a pharmacy. I don't remember the name of it, but it's one of the chains that's like everywhere all over the Philippines. And we told them, okay, we need some bandages and we need some peroxide because I want to make sure that I'm not going to get an infection. And so we got some of that stuff, and again, it's really cheap. And weirdly enough, they didn't sell the bandages in more than one per pack. I'm like, that's really odd. So we ended up buying like 10 packs of bandages, which is like, well, again, one each, and then some peroxide and all that. So I'm cleaning up my leg. We're taking care of it, right? Everything is supposedly good. You know, I've been burned before, no big deal. But I've never been burned like this before, and especially not being on a trip in another country, right? So we continue on with our trip. We eventually get over to Cebu Island. We make our way down from Cebu City to Moalboal. Again, the road to Moalboal video, if you haven't watched it, it's such a beautiful drive. Like I enjoyed the whole thing. It took about 3 hours to get there, right? So of course G's worried about me because my leg is all lit up, and she's like, you probably shouldn't get in the ocean. And I'm thinking, you know what, it's fine. The ocean's got salt water, it might sting, it'll be fine, no big deal, right? Okay, so we go snorkeling, we do all that. Again, check out those videos. And we're having a good time. And of course my leg stings, and I'm not having a good time with that. So after we get out of the water, I'm keeping it wrapped up, and I'm keeping peroxide on it and all that. Over time, as this is going on, since we left Bohol, the wound has started to fill in with what's called granular tissue. And at that time, I didn't know what exactly it was. And over time, that granular tissue started to turn green on top. And not some kind of like a, ooh, that's, that might be an issue, but it was like, ooh, that's definitely an issue, right? That's definitely infected in some sort of way. And she says, okay, we got to take you to the hospital. I'm like, okay, we're in Moalboal. I can't imagine that they have a really good hospital here. And to be honest, we didn't look. I didn't see one, and I felt like it was okay. And we were heading to Cebu, in a day or two anyway. And Cebu is supposed to be known to have some of the best hospitals in the entire country. So we ended up leaving Moalboal on schedule, and we go up to Cebu, and then we went to the hospital Hong Chua, I think it's called. We looked up the reviews, and again, like there are a ton of hospitals in Cebu, and again, they're supposed to be like top notch and the best in the whole country, but they didn't have really great reviews. And I felt like this one had probably one of the best, reviews out of all of them. And so we went there, right? We walk up to the front door, and we start talking to a security guard because, again, we don't know what we're doing. We're not from here. G hasn't been in the Philippines for like 15 years, and I don't think that they even went to the hospital back when she was a kid. So we don't know what to do. So we're talking to the security guard, and he goes, well, you should go to the emergency room. And I'm like, well, it's not an emergency. What else can we do? And he said, well, just go to the front desk. And I'm like, okay. I just want to give out a shout out to all the security guards in the Philippines. You guys are awesome. Every single one that we came across was super nice. They were friendly, and they always wanted to help us out with whatever was going on. Even if you're just walking through the door, those guys go up and they open the door for you and everything. They're very courteous. So shout out to you guys and everything that you do. We love you guys. Thanks for doing it all. You're amazing. So we end up going into the main desk of the hospital, right? And we tell the girl what's going on. She ends up getting us hooked up with a doctor like almost immediately. We're like, wow, that's amazing. So we got in, and we were up there in like 5 minutes or something, right? Nothing crazy. And so we go up, we find the doctor's office, and we walk in, and she's got 2 nurses in there, super nice ladies. And they get us checked in, like I'm filling out information, right? What's your name, where you live, all this kind of stuff. And I ask them, how much does it cost to see the doctor, right? Because I'm thinking, we're not using insurance. We're doing this out of pocket. It's a big hospital in a big city. Like, what is this going to cost? Wait for it. This is going to blow your mind. To see a professional doctor in this giant hospital, no insurance, cash money, 600 pesos. 600. Now that's about 11 US dollars to see the doctor. I'm not even kidding you when I say if you go to an urgent care here in America, not even like a full-on hospital, just a regular urgent care, these guys are going to charge you minimum 125 US dollars or more just to see them. And that's not including anything else, right? No prescriptions, no x-rays, no nothing. It's just being seen at all. No insurance, $125 or more. And in today's economy, I wouldn't be surprised if it was even more at this point. So, needless to say, I'm astounded. $11 to see this doctor, done, right? So we walk in, we sit down. The doctor was nice. She wasn't overly excited. Maybe she was just tired. I don't know. Whatever the deal was, she looked at my leg. I unbandaged it. I showed it to her. She saw the green. She saw everything going on, and she was not worried at all, right? She's a professional, so I'm thinking, okay, she's not worried. I shouldn't be worried. Because at this point, my leg is, again, it's turning green, and the last thing I want to do is lose part of my leg, if not the whole thing, on this trip. Like, that would not be a good time at all. So she looks at it and she says, okay, I'm going to give you a prescription for antibiotics, and I'm going to give you a prescription for some burn cream and some pain reliever and that stuff, right? And that's it. She didn't wrap my leg again. She didn't touch it at all. Nothing. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, it can't be that bad, right? So naturally, G asks her, can he swim in the ocean? Is that going to be a problem? And she said, no, it might sting a bit because of the salt, but it won't be an issue. And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking the same thing, right? And then she asked me if I had my tetanus shot. I'm thinking, well, like within the last 5 years. And I'm thinking, I don't remember. Like, it's probably been a long time, so I don't know. So I'm just going to say yes, which I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have said yes. I should have said no and then gotten the tetanus shot right there just to be safe, but I didn't. So keep that in mind whenever you have issues in the future, just kind of think about it and I guess be a little bit more cautious than I was at that point. So we go downstairs, we find the pharmacy, we're waiting in line to get stuff. And again, these pharmacies take forever because everybody has to go there, all that stuff. So we go up to the front, we ask the ladies, hey, where can we get bandages here as well? Because I'm going to need some more bandages. And the lady says, no, we don't do those at this pharmacy, but you can go up into the supply pharmacy up on like the 3rd floor or something like that and get some from there. Okay, so I left G there. She's waiting for the pharmacy to fill my prescriptions. And so I'm going to go find where this random supply pharmacy is. And I'm going to be honest, it took me a while. It's a big hospital. I was walking all over the place, but I eventually found it, right? And luckily, I guess because it's the hospital, they were able to give me packs of bandages in 10 and not just one single one, right? So I got a bunch of bandages and I got some tape and I got some other things, right? So we're good to go. And again, it was not expensive. So by the time I get back down, the pharmacy is ready for us. They get us all of our stuff, all my stuff. And all in all, I think it costs about $60, right? So we're looking at about $70 to $80, everything out the door, no insurance. And it's blowing my mind because again, going to just a regular urgent care here, you're going to spend even more than that with no insurance. And that's not even including, pharmacy things. Okay, so we continue on the trip, right? We are in Cebu City. And so from there, I think we ended up flying over to Caticlan, and then we spent some time in Boracay, which was nice, very beautiful. Again, check out our videos. And my leg is still doing the same thing, right? Nothing's changing, but I'm taking the antibiotics, I'm keeping it clean, I'm using the ointments, and I'm trying to keep any bacteria out of there. And again, the doctor wasn't super worried about it, so I was trying not to be worried about it. And eventually we ended up in El Nido. Well, in El Nido, my leg is still doing the same thing. And in fact, it's actually the granular tissue is filling in even more. And at this point, it's still getting green. Like it's turning even more green and it's spreading around the wound itself. Now, the wound is staying green. The area around it is not turning green at all, which is a good thing, right? Because I believe that's gangrene at that point. But the area around the wound was very red and it was very tender. So I'm thinking, okay, this can't be good. The antibiotics aren't working. We need to see a doctor again, right? So we find a hospital in El Nido. And again, it's nothing to write home about. It was like a 2-story building. We walk in, we try to get seen by the doctor, and then we have to just wait in line, right? So we end up getting seen by the doctor. They put us in a separate room, and for whatever reason, they left the door open, which I thought was kind of weird. Like, we're in a separate room by ourselves, and the door is wide open while the other patients are like waiting outside to be seen. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, this isn't really private, but maybe it's just too hot in here without the door open. I don't know. It's not bothering me too much. It's just a little weird, right? I'm not used to that kind of thing. So the nurse comes in and she's looking at my leg and she takes my bandage off and she's trying to clean it up, right? She's, rubbing it down with, I believe, peroxide and some other things. And she ends up starting to try and peel off some of the green part. Of course, that hurts really bad at this point. And I'm not even knowing what's going on because we haven't seen the doctor yet. Well, she stops because it hurts. And then the doctor comes in. Super nice guy. He spoke great English, like there was no communication issue. So if G wasn't there, like I could have been fine, right? I could have talked to the doctor. I could have talked to the nurse. Everything was great. And that is one thing that I really appreciate about going around the Philippines is that, you can still communicate with people. And I realize that it's not my country, so I shouldn't expect people to speak English, but it is a huge benefit when I'm still trying to learn Tagalog and Bisaya. So at this point, the doctor comes in, he takes a look at it, and he says, oh yeah, that needs to be cleaned out. That's not good. And of course, I'm thinking, okay, well, the other doctor didn't say anything like that, and it was green back then, so why is it an issue now? And so he's looking at it and he's like, okay, we're going to have to clean this out. It looks like it hurts, so we're going to have to numb you up. And that's where this video is coming in.
Ikaw maglinis araw-araw, ha?
Oh, sige po.
Oo. Hindi ka naman nanilinig dyan.
Hindi naman.
Kaya mo naman.
Hindi naman.
Pero pag nililinisan nyo dapat ang galing lahat.
Oh, sige po.
Para
So-
I think this one has been done anyway. Yeah. As compared to prior days. I'll just shift you to a different kind of antibacterial just because it seems that the Comoxy glove is helping a little bit, but it's not helping adequately, right? We need it to be less infected than this. And you've been on the antibiotics for 5 days now. Right?
Yeah.
You're about done with your course and it's still not looking fine. Saan yung pinakamata? Ito. Yung pinakama... Okay, this will be painful a little bit. Just... Okay.
Oh, fuck.
Okay. Deep breaths.
Oh.
You got it, babe. Just breathe. Breathe. Just keep breathing.
Is it more painful than the 6, the 7?
It was, not anymore.
Okay.
I didn't think I could sweat more in the Philippines.
Which part of the US are you from?
Texas.
It's
also very hot.
Very, very hot there as well.
And humid, but not like here.
Not like here?
Oh.
You got it, babe.
It's still painful?
You got it.
Ooh.
Breathe.
It should start to numb down now.
Deep breath. Is it nabbing?
Yeah.
A little bit good.
Is it?
That's good.
Is it a little bit less painful now?
Yeah.
Dito? Mas makapal ba dito? little painful.
Is it so
A
painful?
little bit on the left, but now it's kind of gone away.
Here, you feel
You feel that?
No.
that pain? No.
So it seems to be working.
Oh,
That hurts?
on the bottom,
Okay.
right in here is where it stands.
It's here.
Ooh.
It might not have penetrated up until that level. Let's see.
Oh, that's fun.
That's a problem with infected wounds. It's a lot more painful than injury.
You're good.
Must be a nerve. Oh, yeah.
Woo! You got it, baby.
Just deep breaths.
Just breathe.
Oh, it makes me sweaty now.
Maybe you should help start again. So. Okay.
So as you can see in the video, this was not a good time, and G decided to start recording, kind of randomly, and I'm glad that she did so that we could see, look at it from the future perspective. But you can see like just how much pain I'm in because of what they're doing. Like the doctor was, kind of jabbing the needle right into the wound and then moving it around, and then kind of finding another spot, squeezing a whole bunch of that numbing liquid in there. And that burned so bad. Like it was to the point where for whatever reason it was hitting a nerve, and I was getting shocks all the way up to my knee. And I told the doctor that, and he said, well, that shouldn't be happening. And I'm like, well, it is. So I don't know what to tell you. Like it really hurts. And so eventually he got done, and everything's numb, right? It's numb. I can't feel a thing. And then the nurse comes back and she starts peeling off all the green stuff and all the granular tissue. And I keep mentioning that for a reason, and we'll get to it in a bit. So as you can see with these pictures as I'm putting through the video, the wound was cleaned out, but for whatever reason it was still kind of like this weird kind of green tissue in there. And for the life of me, I kept trying to scrub it and keep it clean like the doctor said, but I just couldn't. So as we're leaving the hospital, of course, we still have island tours to do. We're doing all sorts of stuff in the water. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, let's see if these guys have waterproof bandages, because everywhere else we went, even the hospital in Cebu, they did not have waterproof bandages. I don't know why this was a weird concept, because when we asked for it, people didn't understand. Again, here in America, you can get waterproof bandages like practically anywhere. So we were able to get like 3 waterproof bandages, and they charged us like over $5 each for each one. And they were decent sized ones, but I'm like, $5 for a bandage? Okay. But we paid it, right? Again, the doctor visit, he ended up giving me a tetanus shot this time because I wanted to make sure that I'm not going to, end up having issues. And some more burn creams, a different kind of antibiotic, and then the bandages, and then them cleaning my leg out, all this stuff. All in all, it ended up costing $90. Again, in America and other Western countries, that is unheard of. Like, that is so cheap. It's just, it's crazy. And I loved it, right? Okay, so now we're leaving the hospital. We go out and we find a tricycle, and the guy's just driving by, so we kind of flag him down and we try and get him. Now, G grew up in a time where they didn't go to the hospital a lot, right? If it was emergency, sure, but other than that, it was like you got to figure it out on your own. So when it came to having wounds and other things like that, they would end up using guava leaves. They would take the leaves, they would boil them, and then they would pour that water onto the wound. Of course, not boiling hot, you let it cool down a bit, but they wanted it to still be warm. And I'm thinking, guava leaves, why would I pour guava leaf tea on my leg? And I actually looked it up, and guava leaves actually have an antibacterial property in them. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, that's interesting. I never knew that. But, you know, if you're looking for a cheap way of trying to, you know, heal yourself when you have a wound or other issues, that's the way to do it, right? We get the tricycle driver, and G turns to him and she says, hey, do you know where we can get some guava leaves? And of course, we are in the tropics, so there's got to be a guava tree somewhere, right? I kid you not. This guy was super excited. He gets out of the tricycle and he runs back in between the hospital and someone else's house and he disappears. I'm like, okay, what the heck is going on? Because again, in America, you don't just go running between people's houses. You don't just go, you know, off into the woods and trying to find things. This guy comes back with a whole handful of guava leaves. And I'm like, where did you even get that from? I was amazed. I was impressed. I was like, okay, cool. And of course, the guy didn't try and charge us for it or anything like that. He was being super helpful and he was really nice and just a cool guy. And like, what taxi driver or somebody would like do that? Just be like, okay, hold on a second, then go run off into the woods to get you what you need. So we've got the guava leaves. We go back to the hotel that we were staying in. G ends up making the guava leaf tea. We pour it on my leg a few times, you know, over the next couple of days and everything. And I can't say that it helped. I can't say that it didn't. But I was still having issues because, again, the doctor was telling me keep it clean. Whenever you see the green stuff, make sure you try and peel it off or just, you know, rub it down, all that kind of stuff. And let me tell you, an open burn wound like that I've had for weeks now, it really, really stings when you're putting peroxide on it and when you're trying to rub it down or when you're trying to peel this green stuff off. Like, oh my gosh, it hurts. Like, really, really hurts. And at this point, both G and I are frustrated because we've been dealing with this like the entire trip, right? Practically the entire trip. So we continue on. My leg isn't really doing anything different. It's the same, right? Fast forward when we get back to America, right? We come back to America. My leg is still doing the same thing. It's still green. It's not doing well. I'm still trying to keep it clean, but I'm not succeeding. The granular tissue keeps growing in and it eventually turns green and everything, right? So before I end up having to lose my leg over this, I end up going to an emergency room to make sure that everything is happening as it should. So I go to the emergency room, and of course I have to wait for other people, which is understandable because I'm not, you know, really in an emergency. And eventually I get to see the doctor and I tell him the whole story. And he kind of laughs a little bit and he goes, oh yeah, I've got one of those too. And he shows me his leg and he's got a burn on his leg from his motorcycle here in America. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not just me. So we go on with the whole story and I tell him what happened and how the doctor had like cleaned it out and everything. And I kid you not, the American doctor looks at me and he goes, they should not have done that. What do you mean they shouldn't have done that? And he says, what they did was they removed all the granular tissue that was filling in the wound. And so because they cleaned it out and they were asking you to keep it cleaned out, it wasn't healing. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But what about all the green? Like, I don't want to lose my leg over this. And he said, yeah, the green is something to be, you know, concerned about. But if you're taking antibiotics, it should be fine. And eventually, the green stuff will end up sloughing off. Right? The wound will fill in and the green stuff will slough off. And I'm like, hold on. So I just went through this entire trip for 30 days with my leg burned and messed up and hurting every single day and trying to deal with it all the time. And you're telling me all I had to do was just wrap it up and leave it alone and just keep the bandages clean? Oh my gosh. 30 days, guys. 30 days of this. And let me tell you, G was not a happy camper about it because she's over there helping me all the time and I'm hurting and she doesn't want me to lose my leg. I don't want to lose my leg. Like, it was not a good time. At least that part of the trip, right? That was the worst part of the entire trip. And so I did exactly what the doctor told me. He gave me some more bandages and some wraps and everything and showed me some different things to do. And I left it alone. I stopped trying to clean it out. And I'm telling you, it filled in within like a week. And yeah, it was kind of hurting still, but it, of course, wasn't like an open wound anymore. So it's not stinging, it's not that kind of pain. Did it still hurt? Yes, it's still kind of growing back and everything and all that. So, like I said, it's been months now since we've been home. I still feel it from time to time in the sense that it's like itchy, but not so much pain, and I guess a little bit of like a nerve kind of shock every once in a while, like little pricklies, I guess you could say. And I don't know what's causing that, but overall, like it's filled in and it's healed. I didn't lose my leg. It's like not the end of the world. Now I got a big old scar with, I guess, a cool story to tell, which is, why I'm here right now talking to you guys about it. But, overall, honestly, it was kind of scary because we're in a country on the other side of the world, and I'm dealing with multiple doctors and I'm hearing different things, and then they ended up kind of doing it wrong. Like I said, the second doctor in El Nido, he was super nice. He was super friendly. But according to my doctor here, he was wrong. And because he was wrong, like I was in continued pain for the rest of the trip, like another week and a half to 2 weeks, I think, when I didn't need to be. And so that's kind of frustrating. And again, I don't know if this is a situation where you can say that you get what you pay for. Medical in the Philippines is a lot cheaper than other countries, especially America, when you're not dealing with insurance and everything like that, of course. And even when you are dealing with insurance here in America, sometimes the copay is going to be more than what you would pay in the Philippines. But I've heard all sorts of different medical horror stories about the Philippines. You got to find the right place, and you got to find the right doctors and the people that you can trust, and they're going to take care of you and they know what they're doing. Not everybody's perfect. People make mistakes and everything like that, but it is kind of scary when you're dealing with certain things that have to do with your health and your well-being, and of course, at some point, your life. So I'm gonna say this: like, if you're going to visit, then okay, you're just gonna have to deal with what you got, like what we did. But if you're gonna move there, I highly recommend finding a place where there's a good hospital nearby that has good doctors and can take care of you. Here in America, in Texas, you can look down the street and see 4 or 5 different urgent cares, some emergency rooms, and then you go 15 to 20 minutes down the road and there's a big old hospital and like a full-on emergency room. You've got ambulances that can come get you. You've got grocery stores that have all sorts of medical supplies. Like, you have all this stuff readily available to you, like within your doorstep if you live in the city. Of course, if you live out in the middle of nowhere, that's a different story. But like being in the city, you understand that everything is right there. But even in the Philippines, being in the city, you may not get the same kind of care that you were expecting to receive from your home country. And I'm not saying that you won't, right? Again, there are good hospitals and there are good doctors and there are people out there that will take care of you. But just be aware, even though it's cheap, it's not always better. So either find a really good doctor and hospital that you want to go to, or potentially go back to your home country and get care there if you have insurance and can afford it and everything like that. But my situation on this trip, I guess it's kind of unique in a way. It wasn't fun, and hopefully it didn't gross you guys out too much and you were able to check it out. And hopefully YouTube doesn't take this down because it's violating community standards or whatever. But with that, I'm gonna call this video. Again, I hope you guys kind of enjoyed it. I know it was a little weird, but I really hope that it's kind of eye-opening and kind of shows you guys what it's like to deal with things in the Philippines, whether you're visiting or going to move there, and kind of gives you perspective on what to expect. So thank you guys for following along. I also want to give out a shout out to all of our subscribers. Right now, I believe we are at 425. Now, that's not a huge number as far as YouTube standards are concerned, because like you don't even get the YouTube plaque until you hit 100,000. You don't get monetized until you hit 1,000 in total. But the thing is, like, we can say that we have 425 people who are subscribed to see our content. Like, that means the world to us. You 425, you guys are awesome. To everyone else who's watching these videos, please consider subscribing. You don't even have to like the video if you don't want to, but that would help. But please subscribe so that we can keep growing and doing what we want to do with this, because in the future, we are going to be moving to the Philippines full time, and we are going to want to be doing a lot of good things for the country and the people. And we're going to have a video talking all about that. But honestly, the best way that we can do that is with your guys' support and everybody kind of following along and watching our videos and everything. You don't even have to give any money or do anything like that. You know, just subscribe. Just subscribe and check out our videos and follow us along. And we really hope that you guys enjoy the content that we're providing, because honestly, like, we're having a good time with it. That was the best vacation and trip that we've ever had, like both of us, in our entire lives. And we just hope that when we move there in 2026, that it's just going to continue on like that, you know. And we plan to. We want to visit all over the Philippines, and we want to go to other countries. We want to do all sorts of things. So stay tuned. Keep up with us, please. It is probably going to be, you know, some time before we put out videos in between our time and now and when we move to the Philippines. But we're going to try and find some other things to do to keep you guys entertained. But with that, again, I just want to say a really big, heartfelt thank you to everybody who's supporting us. And for those of you who aren't directly, you know, we would appreciate you jumping in and being a part of the adventure club, right? All right, guys. Have a great one. We love you. Take it easy. And I'm Ping.